Tanse. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Krisanachkite. Thank you for joining us. After 49 years in prison, Leonard Peltier was released from Florida this week. Peltier, of course, is a well-known American Indian movement member who was behind bars for killing 2 FBI agents. For years, some have said Peltier was falsely accused. Here's T.R. Wheatley with details about his release.
We are not going to give up. We're going to win. We've been winning. We're going to continue to win.
This video of Leonard Peltier is amongst the first images of him after he was released from a federal prison in Florida on February 18th. Peltier was greeted by members of the Indian Collective, an organization focused on Indigenous-led activism. Peltier is Anishinaabe from the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation near Belcourt, North Dakota, and a well-known member of the American Indian Movement, or AIM. He was convicted of murder in the killings of 2 FBI agents after a shootout in Pine Ridge in 1975. A shootout that saw Peltier flee to Canada, where he was eventually arrested by RCMP at Small Boys Camp in Alberta and then extradited to the U.S. by what many observers say was false evidence. AIM, of course, came to prominence in the 1970s, mainly for the armed takeover of Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Earlier this year, on January 20th, Peltier's double life sentence was commuted by Joe Biden at the 11th hour of his U.S. presidency. In poor health, Peltier is expected to live under house arrest in his home community. A welcome home celebration is planned for Peltier in Belcourt and is headed up by the Indian Collective. For over the past 4 decades, the collective heavily pursued a campaign to free Peltier. While he hasn't been exonerated, the collective says having him at home to serve the rest of his time is still a major feat. In a media release, the collective said Peltier's release is, quote, a symbol of our collective power and inherent freedom, unquote.
We're going to continue until we are a free nation. I gave 50 years for that.
APTN will head over the border for that homecoming and should have more on this from North Dakota in the coming days. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
After more than a century, the Haida Nation in BC is getting their land back, as the Haida signed a historic agreement with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Monday to recognize their title over the Haida Gwaii Islands in British Columbia's north coast. Trudeau held back tears, telling the Haida Nation that he couldn't think of a better place as one of his final stops as Prime Minister.
Haida Gwaii belongs to you, the Haida people.
Gagwis Jason Alsop, the president of the Council of the Haida Nation, said the historic agreement represents a move from an era of denial, occupation, and resistance to one of peaceful coexistence and recognition of the Haida land. What is now called the Big Tide Haida Title Lands Agreement will affirm that the Haida have title over Crown land in the area. Trudeau called the agreement a monumental step, and that he stayed true to the principles of truth and reconciliation to restore Canada's relationship with Indigenous people. The transition is expected to take up to 5 years and will require legislation to help address some of the details. Private property owners in the area will not be impacted. A British Columbia Supreme Court judge has ruled that the RCMP made what he called a grossly offensive, racist, and dehumanizing remarks about Indigenous women when they arrested them during the 2021 blockade of the Coastal GasLink pipeline in BC. The court also acknowledged it's part of a pattern of systemic racism against Indigenous women in the justice system. Audio recordings from land defenders captured the RCMP laughing and comparing the women to evil characters from The Lord of the Rings. The RCMP also mocked the women for wearing red handprints on their face, a symbol of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Justice Taman said the RCMP's racist comments breached the charter rights of Wing Chief Slato Molly Wickham, Shaylin Sampson, and Corey Jocko. He also said the RCMP used chainsaws to illegally break into structures without warrants and showed there were systemic issues with the RCMP's pipeline enforcement unit. Justice Michael Taman says the RCMP's misconduct findings still don't warrant a stay of charges against the land defenders, but they will now receive reduced sentences for criminal contempt, a move the Supreme Court judge saw as appropriate. A man was recently exonerated in the 1973 killing of a Winnipeg father, but now he's suing multiple levels of government over the wrongful conviction that put him in prison for 50 years. This week, 73-year-old Clarence Woodhouse filed a lawsuit against the federal and Manitoba governments, along with the city of Winnipeg. Woodhouse is seeking damages for his wrongful conviction in a case that involved racism and false confessions. He was one of 4 men from Penamutang First Nation. They were living in Winnipeg and convicted by a jury in the killing of Ting Fong Chan, a restaurant worker who was found beaten and stabbed outside. Last October, Manitoba Court of King's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal exonerated Woodhouse, declaring him innocent, saying Woodhouse's case was plagued with systemic racism. The lawsuit seeks damages for loss of liberty and reputation, along with the long-term pain and suffering Woodhouse went through. In Manitoba, the Right to Housing Coalition is calling on the province's NDP government to prioritize social housing investment in their 2025 provincial budget. At a Tuesday news conference, the coalition outlined 3 demands: add 10,000 social housing units by 2034, dedicate $232 million to protect and maintain existing units, and fund support workers to help tenants cope with their health and mental issues. As part of the first demand, they're asking the province to add 1,650 units in 2025 and 26. The coalition says low-income renters spend 51% of their earnings on housing, and that the demand for social housing has surged. Manitoba's 2025 budget is expected to be released in March or April. Shauna McKinnon of the Right to Housing Coalition says relying on the private market is not the solution.
People are renting in the private market. We know what happens there. Rents go up. We recently we released a report last week that showed that landlords are able to go get increases above the guidelines and increase rents. And so folks are vulnerable. They don't have an increase in income and the rents go up and then they lose their housing. So the only way to guarantee people security, folks in low income, is to make sure that they have long-term housing that is rent geared to income, so that they're not paying over 30% of their income on rent. That's what's needed, and that is what social housing is.
Tatasqueyak Cree Nation's very own Sebastian Gaskin is up next. We're back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Invictus Games just concluded in Vancouver, and APTN's Tina House was also there and brings us some of the highlights of the last 10 days where injured war veterans from around the globe came together to compete in a series of sporting activities.
Sport has the ability to heal, to change lives, and to save lives.
Through sheer determination, hard work, and support, over 500 competitors from 23 nations battled on the ski hill, to the courts, to the playing field, to push past their limitations and compete at the Invictus Games. Here at the closing ceremonies, the heroes of war were honored, not only for their bravery in serving their countries, but also for their courage to heal from their injuries and proudly represent their countries in sport. The founder of the Invictus Games, the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, addressed a sold-out crowd, and in particular, the athletes at Rogers Arena.
Thank you for bringing your heart to the forefront of these games and for showing all of us how it's done.
Musicians such as Canadian icons, the Bare Naked Ladies, and Grammy Award winner Jelly Roll performed for the crowd. Vancouver-based The Bitterly Divine rock band, fronted by Tawny Joseph, performed at the Invictus Village. Joseph was a major part of the planning team for the Four Host First Nations in bringing the Invictus Games to Vancouver, Whistler.
For me, it's been incredible to meet so many different people and just to actually be here with all of our peoples from all the communities, Indigenous peoples here, strong and proud.
And during the 9-day event, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex visited all 4 host First Nations.
Incredible, genuine people. They came to our community, met with over 100 of our children from our communities. They shared their songs, they shared our dances with them, they welcomed them, they sat with them, talked with them, and just shared stories. And for me, that was incredible.
Nick Booth is the CEO of True Patriot Love. He is behind the bid to bring the Games to Vancouver Whistler.
It's just such an honour to be here on the lands of the 4 host First Nations and to have been on this journey. It was 5 years ago that True Patriot Love decided to bid to bring the Games back to Canada. We were here in 2017, but we wanted to come to the beautiful lands in British Columbia.
And during the closing ceremonies, Prince Harry had a message for Indigenous people across Canada.
To the host nations, to the host First Nations, thank you for your partnership, your friendship over the past 3 years. What your people have endured should never have happened. You've shown us what it looks like to fight for the survival of something far greater. Something far greater. Your land, your culture, your communities, and your light. You show the world how to move forward, armed with the truth in order to achieve reconciliation. And for that, we are forever grateful. Chin Chin Swai.
The next Invictus Games takes place in Birmingham, England in 2027. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
To Aboriginal Australian International News now. Lunar New Year festivities recently began marking the Year of the Wood Snake. It's one of the most important cultural celebrations for many East and Southeast Asian communities, observed by more than 1/4 of the world's population. And for artist Jason Wing, who has both Chinese and Aboriginal ancestry, it's a time for reflection, with his work offering an exploration and celebration of culture. NITV's Jennifer Shira reports.
Painted along an alleyway in Sydney's Chinatown district, Jason Wing's mural, In Between Two Worlds, is a dynamic expression of bicultural identity, weaving together elements of his Chinese and Aboriginal heritage.
I'm a descendant of the Biripi mob. On my father's side, I have Cantonese heritage from Guangdong province, mainland China, just off Hong Kong. I like to refer to myself as I'm 100% Chinese, 100% Aboriginal, 100% Australian. That's how I like to think of my cultures, and I always see with those 3 lenses.
This influence of culture also present in his art practice.
We reference traditional cave painting techniques like the chewing evoker and splatter. The Chinese paper cuts actually just act as a stencil, and the ochre splatter creates the image.
As the lunar calendar moves from the Year of the Dragon to the Year of the Snake, his latest mural, created alongside his partner, Gnu Barkindji artist Madison Gibbs, is a symbolic embrace of Aboriginal and Chinese culture, the serpent sacred in both.
Dragon is the symbol for the emperor, the most fierce, strongest, most powerful, spiritual, creative animal, which we believe existed in a different form. The serpent for me represents strength, adaptation, overcoming all obstacles and boundaries with limitations. The rainbow serpent created our land, sea, it's a fertility, it's a female energy, it created everything.
I felt proud the whole time painting it because there were so many different people from different communities coming up to us and saying, I understand this story, I see it.
The power of sparking conversations through public art, another driver behind the duo's creative process.
253 years of colonisation is too much and has been at the detriment of everybody in this country. I think truth-telling and reclaiming space is the only way to start fresh and to move forward.
I only really want them to ask the question like, why is that imagery, or why those colours, or why that combination, to spark these conversations. And that for me is enough. A visual Aboriginal presence and a visual Chinese presence together is enough.
a once bare wall, now a powerful expression of culture, spirituality and identity. Jennifer Scherer, NITV News.
We now want to tell you about this week's new web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, considering previous calls to boycott Canada Day, has your opinion of Canada changed in light of the recent events in the United States? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Go to our website at www.aptnnews.ca to have your say. We have to take a short break, but when we return, we have another segment of Mother Tongue Teachings. Stay with us. Starting on the east, St. John's -6, Charlottetown -5. Cartwright -3, La Grande River -13. Sun's out in Saguenay at -12, Quebec City -13. Sunny in Ottawa at -11, Peterborough -13. Big Trout Lake -20, partly cloudy in Sioux Lookout -19. Churchill -19, Thompson -20. -22 in Gimli, Winnipeg -23. North Battleford -35, Regina -31. -23 in Uranium City, Buffalo Narrows -28. -13 in Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray -14. -21 in Medicine Hat, Calgary -13. 8 in Tofino, Vancouver 9. Sandspit 7, Prince Rupert 8. Watson Lake rain at -13, Mayo -5. -15 in Yellowknife, Fort Simpson -11. -25 in Sax Harbor, Polituck -18. -18 in Chesterfield, Baker Lake -22. And Arctic Bay -23, Iqaluit -17. All month long, we've been bringing you Mother Tongue Teachings here on the Noon Show, taking you to the roots of Indigenous languages. Today, T.R. Wheatley introduces you to David Ningoy Ningan. He's a Hockey Night in Canada in Inuktitut announcer. Here he is with his explanation on the importance of learning the language.
Learning phrases of the day from Indigenous language carriers. I'll get you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, David Ningan. Hi, my name is David Ningan and I'm from Rankin Inlet.
And you're going to teach me one here today.
Yeah. Inuktitut okhausat makitati nagakakatigo. We have to keep our language strong. Inuktitut okhausat makitati nagakakatigo. Inuktitut okhausat makitati nagakakatigo. We have to keep our Inuktitut language strong.
And can you tell me why that's so important to do that?
A lot of our youth and our people are losing the language because it's not taught in our classrooms on a regular basis. And so our youth are using cell phones more, social media more, and not as exposed to our language. And so we need to continue to allow our youth to hear the language of the North, and Inuktitut it is, and so we want to make sure we keep that going so that we don't lose the language. We have a number of dialects in Nunavut for various locations. We've got Baffin region, Kivalliq region, and Qitirni region, which all have their own unique dialects. We've been invited to cover Hockey Night in Canada in Inuktitut for APTN, so we're very excited to be here. Our first game is on March 8. Inuktitut okhausat makitati nagakakatigo.
Thank you, David and TR. And David, nice vest indeed. If you want to see David's lesson again or any of the other ones this month, go to our website at aptnnews.ca/Mother Tongue Teachings. And that's your daytime newscast for this Wednesday, February 19th. We're back again in a few hours for your evening newscast with news stories. Make sure to join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Akseh.